Hi, I'm Jeremy Lee, recording this from Jerusalem, although I'm a product of the movement, and in that wanting to wish the MRJ Mazal Tov on reaching this important anniversary. Actually, I'm a product of the movement and its predecessor, the RSGB. I grew up in Edgware, where my father was the rabbi of Edgware and District Reform Synagogue, and where I spent most of the first part of my life, and which brought me to RSY Netzer and to coming to Israel on Israel Tour and Machon, and eventually choosing to live here, but not before having worked for the movement for a year in the 1980s. And subsequent, since moving here, having gone for a career in Jewish education, working with teaching many members of RSY Netzer on programs here, Kietz Netzer, Shnat, Machon, Edgar, and also more recently in Jewish Journeys, actually more recently of the last 20 years. Jewish Journeys, a program established by myself and Julian Resnick to take Jews, members of the movement, to travel sites around the Jewish world. I mention all of these things not to kind of list my biography, but rather to kind of scratch around and think about what has all of it given me. And what it, I think, has given me is something which I got actually from a very, very early age, from a particular moment, which when I think back, may have been lost in the midst of time. Aged about 7 or 8, I remember my father, as I said, rabbi at Edgware Reform Synagogue, taking us to a conference, or a series of conferences that took place in Bournemouth, which were kind of to galvanize, to kind of encourage and to create a campaign for a closer Israel involvement and an Israel conversation within the RSGB as it was then. The assumption being that it wasn't there. And I don't think their interest was particularly just about Israel. I think it was about going beyond the limitations of the movement and reaching out to the wider Jewish people. And for whatever, as much as I can remember of a child at that time, having this sense that we are ourselves, we are our own synagogues, we are our own movement, but there's also more than that. There's the rest of the Jewish people. And so, for me at least, led me to want to move to Israel, and to continue that kind of search, Jewish education around the various different topics, to take us into the big debates of the Jewish people, in a way to cross the boundaries of not just space, Israel, Britain, Jewish travel sites around Europe, the world, but also across time, to other moments of Jewish history, where the big debates of the Jewish people then in some way are still part of us today. And so that sense that we have our core beliefs, but we're also trying to make a difference and change and challenge. I'm going to go back to my dad's interest in trying to push a more Israel-focused agenda, irrespective, I think, of the politics of the day then, and in a way to kind of increase a greater curiosity of those parts of the Jewish world which are not us, but also to engage in a good way, to argue, to debate, to learn, to discuss, to dialogue, and in a way that is what I think for me is really the legacy of having grown up in this movement. I chose the backdrop of here, which is a couple of minutes from my house in Jerusalem, overlooking a rather false view of Jerusalem, which is where it looks ever so quiet and ever so peaceful, which it isn't. It's very lovely and it is occasionally peaceful, but it's not quiet. The debates, the arguments, the noise, for me, are what are enlivening. They are the things which animate us and make us who we are. They are the ways in which we discover the world is more than just us and our synagogues and our movement, but really part of a bigger conversation of something else. So that really, for me, is at least the legacy of having grown up in this movement. And I wish the MRJ much success in continuing that for many years to come, whether that conversation takes place any parts of the UK or in Israel or other parts of the Jewish world. Mazel Tov, and I guess thank you.